Howdy, folks. Happy Tuesday. I had to break out my long sleeve shirts and my put on some pair of jeans today because it was 55 this morning.
That's crazy. It's a good thing you found a gray one, though.
This is blue.
Okay, Mike.
It's blue.
Mike. It's not blue.
It's blue. I'm telling you, it's blue. See?
Mike, that's blue like charcoal.
We have to have a conference. Time for an eye. We need to get Mike checked here, please. Holy crap!
Sorry. Go ahead.
All right.
Here on that note,
the UEFA decided not to let an arena light themselves up in pride colors, and here is their explanation. They basically the explanation is, well, we don't deal with any political context and we're a neutral organization, except there is nothing political about this and there is nothing to be neutral about. It's a total positive thing to light up a stadium. It is something that is meant to bring
there's more together. There's a little bit more to this. The fact that the goalie for Germany, Manuel Neuer, was wearing a rainbow colored captain's armband. And there was talk about whether or not that was going to be under investigation, which again, it's UEFA wants to have its cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
When someone gets into the topic of, they have almost a similar campaign of people being like, hockey is for everyone.
Right.
UEFA has a similar campaign, but the players can't wear an outward.
Yeah.
Logo. And the other issue with this, and here's my other issue is that the stadium, Allianz Arena, I believe, is owned by the city of Munich.
Yes.
You can ask UEFA, but they can put whatever colors they want on the stadium.
Yeah, this is. I mean,
there is no. The fact it was almost like a courtesy.
Yeah, but this is
an unnecessary one.
This stems. I mean, this is the whole branding thing going back to friggin' Jim McMahon wearing the headband that said Roselle and getting fined by the NFL because he was wearing something supposedly he shouldn't have, or Michael Jordan not wearing the Reebok emblem, but because he had a contract with Nike.
There's no financial gain to wearing this, for the goalie wearing this, to lighting up the stadium. There is no financial gain. This is just solidarity. That's all it was about.
No, but that's the problem. It's like they're in their mindset. If they allow players to have some sort of individuality, then they can't prevent them from wearing an emblem for a company that they have an endorsement for. If they open the door, open a crack, they feel that everybody's going to run and stampede through. I think it's bullshit. I think it's stupid.
Yeah, I'm with Anthony. I think Munich should just do what they want. They own the stadium.
Yeah, and I have to acknowledge, because I was happy to see it yesterday. Carl Nazib, who's is he a defensive lineman for the Raiders?
He's defensive end for the Las Vegas Raiders, and also locally in Philadelphia, he is from Westchester. He was a Penn State. He was a defensive end at Penn State. So here in Philadelphia, or at least the Philadelphia area, Nassib have some pretty strong local ties. As a matter of fact, I think when he made his announcement, he was on video. He was in Westchester. It's where he lives.
And for people who don't know, he came out yesterday. And I mean, honestly, we know by percentages that there are probably like 10% of the athletes out there who are gay. Yeah. So I mean, there's not as much of a stigma as it was years ago. So I don't see a negative, if a player comes out.
There's still static in the locker room.
It's still You're still going to get static in the locker room, and it's not as open as everybody thinks it is.
Right.
That's the thing. But it does require, if he felt the need to come out and say something, then it's probably a need that he feels that the meter needs to be moved. So, and he says, I'm a private person by nature, which again, it's interesting. Again, it's a defensive lineman in a highly physical, position.
I will say this, just to make it even more pronounced, what he is known for and what he should be known for. So I remember watching Hard Knocks when he was the guy telling all of his teammates, teaching them compound interest and how to put money in the bank and how to keep it and how much they could make and how over time it doubles and triples or whatever, because it's such a large amount. If you put $1,000, you're not going to get anything. But the money that these guys make, you can put them in high yield accounts, and this is what you can do. And he did all the math for all those guys before they went through their film session. And so I wonder if his former Browns teammates, how many of them listened to him, because this guy's going to have a lot of money and maybe they won't.
I was just looking up to see if he was related to the quarterback, Ryan Nassib, who played for Syracuse. I'm not sure if he is, but
I'm not sure. The spelling of the last name is the same.
Is the same, and Ryan Nassib's from Westchester, PA. So
he's probably there.
That's relevant, I'm sure.
Yeah, but just as an overview, like I said, I mean, maybe there'll be negative repercussions in the locker room, but I think this is I'm
doubtful on that.
I don't think there will be, because it will get reported now.
Right. I think that this is a good thing, and I think that this will start the ball rolling in terms of other players coming out, and I think that's fine, because honestly, I don't think there's as much of a stigma anymore, and I think if they're out, it's one less thing to worry about. So, all right, let's start the show. We got a lot to talk about today. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021.
I'm Anthony Mingioni from Sunrise Philly Magazine and Off the Post Radio.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and I got too many things that I write and talk about and do. So I'm just safe from Hockey Buzz, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. All right, let's start with the announcement that was made a few days ago, but the press conference was this morning. Russ, Gerard Gallant officially announced as the head coach of the New York Rangers. What did you take from the press conference?
So here's the first thing that I took. Gerard Gallant basically was, when he was asked about the players, he was like, yeah, my system will work for anybody. And because, people are trying to gauge, is there going to be a change on the team? And my answer is, of course there's going to be a change on the team. But GM Chris Drury didn't want to admit to it, and neither did Gallant. So Gallant's basically like, yeah, my system works for everybody. But it doesn't, Gerard. It really doesn't. And so there has to be change. So that's one thing. Nobody in New York bought that either. That's it. The one thing about this press conference was you have to understand it's New York fans, New York media. And I'm not trying to say they're different than fans in Carolina, but they're a little more intense. And, you see that in Boston, you see it in Detroit, you see it in certain areas. They're a little more intense. And this was kind of like a veneerish kind of press conference. So another question when asked Gallant about playing younger players, he was like, of course I'll play younger players. And then he's like, as long as they're 200-foot players and play exactly the way I want them to play. So he's not going to say I'm benching younger players that don't. And this is any coach in the league, right? But the fact that the one thing he said that was a positive with the younger players is, I don't see any benefit to putting them on the fourth line. Okay, that's good. That's a positive. But if a player doesn't do exactly what he wants, they're still not going to be playing.
Okay. That's coach's prerogative. I mean, especially they're in a transitional state, the Rangers. It's much like when the Flyers brought in Alain Vigneault. The signal to the players is we bring a coach like this, the expectation levels are going to go up.
Yeah, Drury said that it's a different voice in the room compared to Quinn. Okay, look, he's got more experience. He has some winning, no question. Drury said that he commands the room. Okay. I mean, I've never heard that before, but we're not in the room, so I can't deny that. So
you got to sell to the fan. You got to sell to the fan base.
To the fans a little bit.
Yeah.
Talking about the captaincy though is an interesting one, because Drury was very non-committal. And at first he was sort of like, we're still looking for one. Like, he didn't say it like that, but that was the tone. I have the quote on my pad, but I'm not going to run and get it. But that was the quote, the tone of it. And then he was like, but we have some very good players with leadership abilities here, blah, blah, blah. But that wasn't the first thing he said. So, which leads me to believe I would have made Chris Kreider the captain. I would have done it last year already. I would make him the captain now. But I don't think that's what Chris Drury is going to do. And so now I feel like there's going to be some other change there where we're not expecting it. So that's why on Sirius I said, wouldn't shock me if it's someone like Adam Fox, because he's having tremendous success on the ice. He is he's a likable guy. He is very mature. And I think Drury is sort of looking for that flash rather than somebody like Kreider, who I think would do a great job.
Does he handle the media well?
Yes. Fox. Yeah, Fox is great with interviews. Oh, my God. He's terrific. So I think that I could see them going in that kind of direction for that. Now, something else that was mentioned is we always hear July 1st is change for scouts' contracts, and he said we have to hire a couple scouts. They did just let one go the other day, but he said scouts. So there's going to be changes to the Rangers scouting, and Chris Drury is going to bring in people that Chris Drury likes now. So, there's going to be some changes with the Rangers, and I'm pretty sure I know names, but I'm not going to say them yet. But
sure,
well, things are going to change that way. Whether they change for the better or not, hey, that's up to you to decide. For every Hugh Jessamine, I could point out a Pavel Buchnevich or let's see, I'm trying to think of another really good late round, or actually just recently Zach Jones, another 5th rounder. So I could point out those for any first round whiff. So that's going to be the same no matter who you bring in. I don't know if anybody will do better than their current regime, so we'll have to just put that on ice and see. But he also talked about an ASGM because he hasn't even hired that yet. Because again, he's got a dual position himself.
You remember how long Ron Hextall went before he finally announced an AGM? Because again, the GM sort of wants to make sure what they want to have in place is in place. To me, almost like an AGM anymore for a general manager is kind of like, I need a guy I could delegate some of the things to when I'm ready to delegate those things.
Well, let's just say that the timeline for Drury to hire an AGM will be like lightning compared to what the Sabres did, because it took them almost an entire year to hire Jason Karmanos. And I think at least Drury has been in the organization long enough, knows the structures of what's going on, that he can handle it for a short term while he interviews AGMs. So,
or it's very well. I mean, it could be just somebody organizationally. If it's somebody wants to bring it from the outside, but I have a sneaking suspicion whoever his AGM will be won't necessarily be an outside person.
Yeah, and there was another small red flag, and that was with Chris Drury saying that he was going to talk with Gerard Gallant, and they're going to chat about the coaches. He's going to sort of be a part of that process. Like a lot of times when a coach comes in, he picks his own assistants, and the GM just blanketly approves them or says, "I like these two. Let's maybe rethink this other." But the fact that it was mentioned in a press conference kind of lets me know that Gallant does not have free reign and a lot of power. Drury, that's like a power flex there by Chris.
It'd be a power flex. Here's my prediction. One of the assistant coaches will be Gallant's guy, and the other one will be kind of agreed to.
Yeah.
But of course, if it's someone who Drury likes, we know how that dynamic ends up working.
Yeah, and I think that's something that is going to happen. So, I mean, look, Gallant handled himself well in the press conference. I didn't expect that he wouldn't, but he didn't get into any nitty-gritty or tough questions, and those are going to come up. They're going to come up pretty quick because I will say Larry Brooks was already shooting some good ones first day. So, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, I'm a little surprised if the whole captaincy, in general, the captain doesn't really mean that much, but I'm surprised that a Trouba or even a Panarin, maybe the language situation. I don't know how well Panarin speaks English, but I don't know if he is the highest.
His English is good.
Yeah, he's the highest paid player. He's the best player on the team.
He's not a leader. He's never been known as a leader. He has been more known as, hey, I can help you be a better player because I'm a great player.
Right.
And he's that, but he's never really been known as a leader. I think Trouba, while I think he would be a decent choice, I just think is going to get overlooked because he didn't fit in perfectly right away. It took him a little while. Last year was his best year as a Ranger. And so, I just feel like Drury is looking really deep for this because, again, the Rangers are usually a team that is not without a captain.
Right. And the thing
and it's an odd thing for them.
And the thing about the Rangers that, I mean, I love their talent. I think they have a lot of players who I think are a step away from being, really, really good. But the problem is, I don't perceive Gallant as a developmental coach. I know he played.
He just said he's going to play the young players, and then it's like, as long as they play a 200
game. Vigneault. Right. Of course, in Vigneault's case, he had to in this case.
Hey guys, I'm going to play you. You make one mistake, and you're on the friggin'
bench. Listen, Gallant has no choice. They're going to have to play some young players. But I will tell you this: Drury made it a point that he said it twice, and he made it like all GMs. But, of course, he's talking about himself, that, hey, we're all watching the playoffs. We're all seeing what's winning here. So, again, the overreaction to everybody with St. Louis trying to get bigger, thinking that's what's going to win you the cup. If Tampa wins the cup, that's not what's going to win them the cup. But he talked about physicality and speed. And it's easy to talk about, and it's hard to get those guys.
Yeah.
You could get physical guys that aren't fast, and you can get fast guys that aren't physical. To get the combination is hard in this league.
Yeah, you have to have a balance. You have to have enough speed to compensate for the physical players, and that's an easy segue into the game last night.
I will say one other thing, though. I think, like, somebody who will be a free agent, as an example, like, I could see them going after Barclay Goodrow. As an example, I think that's a guy they'll look at Tampa, say, we could pay more than Tampa, and they'll get a guy like that in there, and he'll play that Gallant system. But again, when you put Barclay Goodrow in there, now you're going to take out a finesse guy. And so that's what's going to happen, I think, with the Rangers. They're going to make some moves. I think Buchnevich will get his contract because I think he has shown a little more physicality. So I think he will get paid. But I think there'll be some other moves there, basically to balance out what Gallant wants. And then we'll see. I will tell you this. Gut feeling, and I'm an honest guy, I did sort of get the feeling that he gave me the same feeling that Michel Bergeron did when he was a Ranger coach. And I'm not saying, well, listen, Bergeron came in with tons of credentials. He talked about winning, and I believe he talked about his system working too. But New York is a different animal. It is. It's not Las Vegas. It's not Florida. You have to go in there and deal with a lot of stuff even before you get to the rink. You may have just gotten almost run over.
And he spoke of, quote, having the conversation with his wife about the challenge of coaching in New York. So this is going to be a new experience for him. And it's going to be real interesting to see, how that's going to go. You're right. He has not coached. He has not coached in what we would call media hotbeds.
Correct. And all that, he was an assistant in Montreal, but it's still, when you're the guy,
it's not the same.
I know when you're the guy and you get to MSG, you have just, like I said, had a schlep. Whether you drove in, whether you did whatever, whether you dealt with, all kinds of traffic, whether you had to deal with, everything being twice as expensive as it was where you were in Vegas, all of those things, all the annoyances at the house, all of those things, it's going to be a lot more.
Russ Cohen commenting on your press conferences all the time, Right.
I have pain in the ass. Anyway, let's segue to Game 5 last night, because I think as I said at the beginning of the series, I thought that this was going, and I said in the comments last night in our group chat, men versus boys. And I turned this game on, thinking it was going to be about 3 minutes, 3 minutes in, it was going to be nothing. It was already 1-0 on Stamkos's goal. And really, the Islanders, it's almost like they thought the game was starting at 9, because the first period, they were terrible. They were chaotic in their own zone, which is usually not the hallmark of a Barry Trotz team. By the time I think they really opened up their eyes, they were down 3-0. And Russ, I said the Tampa power play was going to be a key in this series. And last night, they were successful in lengthening the lead to the point that it was a rout. It was a complete and utter 8-0 rout. And I don't know what.
You remember, I texted you. I said, I think this is going to be like a 7-0 game after it was 3-0.
I don't know whether I don't know whether the Islanders can recover from it. But what did you think?
Well, what I thought was, first off, you're right about the power play. That clearly kicked in. I thought the second thing was there was a point where Tampa was just toying with the Islanders. And Stamkos, I know Stamkos well. And if he feels loose enough on the bench to be sort of yakking it up with his teammates and, and having a good time like that, then they knew they were completely in control of that game. And look, the Islanders tried to creep back into it by getting penalties and other things. It wasn't working. Tampa, the one thing they're doing, and they've done it for 2 games. Well, I shouldn't say 2 games. They did it for the last period of the last one. And then this entire game is they have decided to stretch the ice and continue to pass and get the Islanders moving, all of their players. And because if they're all moving, they all can't set up a defensive box to protect the goalie. And that is the biggest thing that Trotz has not been able to get past, because the problem is those players give 100%. Every minute, every shift, and Tampa is tiring them out now.
Anthony, after the Islanders took a 3-0 lead going into the third period of Game 4, Tampa Bay has scored 10 straight goals. And the only thing that has kept the Islanders alive in this series is the goaltending exploits of Ryan Pula. So
this is true. But it is, again, I know we want to talk about momentum and things rolling into the next game. But again, this is where Trotz is, as one of the best coaches in the National Hockey, he has to earn his money. This is Game 6. They had that, once they go into this game, they took it hard on the chin last night, no question. Everything that could have gone wrong for them last night absolutely did. But we know that, scoring can suddenly disappear at a moment's notice. And dropping an 8 spot, is certainly indicative of what Tampa is capable of. That being said, if the Islanders do like to play from in front. We all know that they play best when they get at least a lead and can force the team to have to grind it up. But Tampa does have the guys that they can come back at any time.
Well, here's the other thing too. Like, as an example, Luke Schen's playing. Luke Schenn scored a goal.
Yep. Weird goal it was. I want to say that weird goals that one was, but that was indicative of how bad things had gotten for the Islanders.
I want to say that again because 2015 Russ Cohen would never believe today's Russ Cohen that Luke Schenn scored a goal.
It was a sensational goal.
It was. But the point is that was a good dad joke. The point is that he, even as a replacement, shows the depth. I'm not talking about the cap thing anymore. It is what it is, guys. If you just think that gives them an instant championship, it doesn't. Does it help? Sure. But the other thing is, I still think the Islanders can win at home. I do believe in the Coliseum and what they get out of it. Mm-hmm. I do think they have to get the first goal, though, because I think if they score the first goal.
Well, I think at 1-0, I think if they fall down by 2, I really become.
But I think they're going to try like hell to get the first one because they didn't want to be shut out last night. Nobody wants to be shut out. You try and get that momentum at the end of the game by at least putting 1 or 2 in. They couldn't do it. But the biggest stat is that stat where Vasilevsky's 12-0 after a loss in the playoffs. And it's really, I say Vasilevsky because it's not a Tampa Bay Lightning record. That's really on him. Because any game that we say, he was a little off and he needs to clean this up a little bit or whatever, he does. And he did. And so that's why I think even if it's a Game 7 that goes into Tampa, Tampa will win. But I think the Islanders could send it to Game 7. I do. And that's why I felt like that's the issue.
Now, a possible factor in that Game 6 for the Islanders is Matt Barzal, who gets a 5-minute major in a game for a cross check on Jan Ruta. Now, Ruta didn't come back for the rest of the game. That was probably precautionary. And they're already down a defenseman with Cernak being hurt. So, if Ruta is out, that's now it's starting to get a little thin for the Lightning on defense. But the question is whether the league, we haven't heard anything from the Department of Player Safety yet about whether it's being reviewed. I don't know if it's going to go that far, but Barzal's not the guy I would have named as the guy who would cross-check somebody in the face.
He lost it last night. You can tell he lost it because he was even pushing at the referee, and the referee did a great job of getting him away from
Matt's had moments in this series where he's been he runs the emotional edge.
Yes.
And I think he went over it. I think he did go over it this time. And we could talk about Ruta diving in this circumstance. Barzal put himself in that circumstance.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, Barzal got that stick up high, so you could, pardon my language, bitch and complain about diving all you want. He got caught.
And I do think it's fair to say at this point that part of the Trotz way that the Islanders are playing is to target the other team's defense because they've done it in every series and they've injured defensemen in every series. Yes? No? Coincidence?
No.
I don't know.
You know. Mike, all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh, I don't know.
No comment.
He's deferring.
Whatever.
Yes, I don't want to raise the ire of certain people in the chat, and certain people on Twitter who think I'm an Islanders hater. Okay, I heard this last night, and I had to do some digging just to find out where it came from. And
I got to answer one thing in the chat room. Funky is 100% right when he says Maroon will be 400 pounds when he's done playing. He will, because he doesn't care about anything. He's a hockey player that is programmed to play hockey, and when he's done playing hockey, he will probably sit and watch hockey all day long, all night long. So I can see that happening. Anyhow,
now just think of this, Russ. Luke Shen could have 2 Stanley Cup rings.
Yep, he could.
Yes, he could.
He'll be leading his brother
back, baby, back to back.
Yes, he'll show that to Leaf fans.
Blue and white, I might add, Michael.
Yes. He'll show that to Leafs.
He'll get invited back by the Leafs when he's retired, and he'll show off those rings. And
Stanley Cup champion, Luke.
If you kind of make it a little blurry, it almost looks like a Maple Leaf.
You want to see a winner? Luke Chen's on the concourse right now next to the sushi stand, folks.
So last night this was on Twitter, and I was like, okay, it doesn't make much sense, but I'll just there are starting to be rumors coming out of Calgary that Matthew Tkachuk wants out. Now, who's going to be left in Calgary? You know, Johnny Gaudreau's got a year left. Matthew Tkachuk, I think he has a year left, but he's
for a living. That's who's left.
Monaco is the only one that's left.
No, but Brancher Living is the one common denominator. He's going to outlive them all.
Yeah, now Tkachuk he has 2 more years. Next year and the year after that, it's $7 million. Then he's an RFA. Now
I have a solution. You want to know the best solution?
Well, let me just finish and then.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if Shane O'Brien, former NHL Shane O'Brien, is on St. Louis radio or where he is, if he does doing a Sirius XM or what, but he said he's heard that Tkachuk wants to play in St. Louis where he's from, and that a deal for Vladimir Tessenko could make sense. Now here's the thing. Do you think Vladimir Tessenko wants to go to Calgary? I don't think so. Now I don't know if he has a no move, no trade.
Hold on, let me see this sticks. Let me throw this and see if it sticks against a wall.
Yeah, but I mean, of course, Tkachuk wants to go to St. Louis because that's his home. But yeah, but okay, but what do you think of this just in general?
Tell him to go for Mike Hoffman money. Let's see how fast that happens.
Well, yeah, Tarasenko has a no trade clause, but not a no move. He has 2 years left at $7.5 million, so the cap hits are comparable, but he's a UFA after the 2 years, whereas Tkachuk is an RFA. Now, I mean, just looking at Calgary for a second. Like I said, we all assume that Johnny Gaudreau is going to play someplace else next season. I think that Ack has talked about that.
He's not playing in Calgary. I don't think so either.
But he
might start the season there, but he won't end it there.
Right. He's got a year left in his contract. I think ideally they would like to make a move before the season starts because his value probably will be at the highest before the season. I think the value goes down as you go closer to the deadline. Then it's probably futures like draft picks. And I think they want to make a hockey trade rather than a future trade. But Tkachuk is different. I mean, now I've talked to somebody in Calgary, Russ, who think, the perception out there, because Tkachuk is a sort of wild man on the ice, loves to hit, loves to be controversial, that he's a leader. And the speculation is that he's not a leader in that locker room. So, I mean, what do you think of this?
I don't think he has to be a leader in the locker room. I think when he's on the ice, he can set a tone. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of teams want a guy that plays that way. I just talked about one in about the press conference. So I could see a team like the Rangers reaching out and trying to make a trade for him, because that's the kind of guy that Gallant would want. That's the kind of guy Chris Drury was just talking about. They're rare, and they're going to have to give up something, but they have assets. They have a lot of young assets. So that's a team where I think they would make a play for him.
Anthony, I as soon as I heard this, I didn't think St. Louis. I thought, like Russ said, a team with a lot of young assets.
Yeah.
Gee, where does his brother play? Ottawa. They have a lot of young assets. And
I know I thought about it, but I don't think he'd want to go there.
Right. Maybe not. I mean, the question is,
if this report is have accuracy to it, he's obviously looking to play. He's looking to jump to a team that he deems to be a contender.
Yes.
Right.
So
right.
Ottawa isn't quite there yet. We talk about Ottawa in a year from now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're pushing.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe they're pushing them, but at the moment, you'd have to sell him on that window. His brother would have to also, really convince him, say, hey, we're on the come. You really want to be a part of this and be a key component of it. But
because I don't know if the St. Louis thing works. I don't know if
I don't know if it does either.
Yeah. No, just in general here, because I mean, how many names have we heard over the last couple weeks? Seth Jones, Dougie Hamilton, he's a UFA. Matt Dumba, Morgan Riley. I'm just talking about the defensemen. There are Goudreau. There are a number of. I mean, there is a lot of rumors going around right now, and the high possibility of a lot of hockey deals happening because of the cap remaining at 81.5. I always got myself worked up for like the offseason thing. Oh my God, this is going to be the biggest, the most trades we've ever seen, and it never happens. I don't know, Russ. I think there's a possibility.
Please.
I'll tell you.
I think there's a possibility it does happen this time around.
No, I mean, look, there's a lot of talk, and I do think the cap will stop some of the talk when they try and make the deals, because it's hard to make the deals. Look, Mike, I remember you talking in high school about getting that IROC with the T-tops, and you never got it. And so I just feel like
you really tried that, Mike.
I drove a
God, you would have fit in great in South Philadelphia.
I drove a Ford Escort, for Christ's sake.
Listen, my first car was a Chevy Vega. I dumped that. Actually, I dumped it for a Carmen Ghia, and I really liked that Carmen Ghia for a while.
My first car was a Nissan Sentra. Not very exciting.
That's a pretty good one, actually. Better than a Chevy Vega, though. I like the Vega. It was okay. Back to hockey.
What hockey player wouldn't be a Chevy Vega, Russ?
Who's a Chevy Vega? Casey Kazikas.
There you go. And Pavel Bury's an IROC?
Yes.
I graduated the Ford chain in terms of the quality of my cars. I went from the Ford Escort to the Ford Tempo to the Ford Probe.
I went from a Chevy Vega to a Dodge Colt, which had a Mitsubishi engine, which was great. Then I went straight Japanese cars and went to Mitsubishi, and then ended up with like Honda, and now I'm like Subaru and Volkswagen, and now actually Subaru right now and Kia. So, but as far as these trades, there is a possibility, but I don't think they're all going to get made over the summer. I just feel like some of them will get made over the summer, and some of it is groundwork that's being laid now for the next trading deadline. And I think that's more like it for some of these other guys. Like Tkachuk is going to be a hard one to move over the summer. He is.
But the thing is, though, it's going to be tougher to make these deals during the season when the cap is locked in. You've got the 10% above the cap that gives some teams room, and then the ability to move things around. That's why I think that there's going to be more deals made this off. Now, the thing that's kind of complicate that is this off season is extremely short. I mean, we're talking in the school year, and I'm thinking like Anthony. The hockey year begins on July 28th, when that's the July 1st of a normal year. After the draft, after this expansion draft, I think it's July 28th. From that point, training camps are, I think, 6 weeks. 6 weeks away. And then so training camps are the middle of September. The season tentatively is going to start October 12th. There's not a lot of and now the groundwork on some of these deals may be being done right now because you have only four teams that are involved in the playoffs. So, Kyle Dubas and Kevin Adams and all these other general managers are probably burning up the phone lines, but there's not a lot of time, Anthony, for these general managers to really make the moves that we think they're going to make.
No, I think you're right. I think there will be a few moves that will be made, but I do think the tight window will make it difficult for the number of moves you'd like to see versus what we're actually doing.
Here's what I'm going to give you. When you were talking about this, Mike, my brain went immediately to the first draft I ever covered, 2001. So I'm going to read you some of those trades.
Okay.
Michael Pekka. And here's a headline. Headline is Sabres unload holdout Pekka to freewheeling Islanders.
Mike Wilson and no, is that the one that was the one?
No.
Oh, excuse me. Damn it. Oh, okay, give it to me.
Taylor Pyatt and Tim Connolly.
Connolly, yeah.
Connolly. Adam Graves going to the Sharks.
Oh, I remember that trade.
Michael Samuelson and Chris Goslin. Samuelson was a decent player. Atlanta, just like all kinds of trades. Flyers trading Dean McCammond. You've got Nolan Pratt.
Concussion. Dean McCammond.
Nolan Pratt. Oh, God.
Nolan Pratt getting dealt. Chris Dingman. Andreas Dackel. Remember him?
Dackel from the
here's one that I remember. This was an interesting one. You had the Blues trading Brathwaite, Daniel Tkachuk, Sergei Varlamov, and a 9th-round pick for Roman Turek and a 4th-round pick.
Okay, I gotta put this up.
Valerie Bore got traded on that day. Yashin became an Islander that day for Chara, Bill McCult, and a 2nd-round pick. I mean, that's what it would be like, Mike.
No, not a 2nd-round pick.
It says 2001, second overall. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it was Spezza. It was Spezza and Chara for Yashin. Yeah. Way to go!
And we're back on the Leafs again.
And let's not forget this one.
No.
I'm joking. I'm being facetious.
Let's not forget this one. The Florida Panthers trade the rights to Yuri Depita to the Flyers for a 2nd-round pick. What a trade!
The best player not playing in the National Hockey League.
But I mean, there were like 10 trades. There were like 15 players that or more, actually like 20-something.
How breathless people in Philadelphia were about Yuri. By the way, its proper pronunciation was Yuri Dopina. That's how it was actually pronounced.
But Mike, you have to admit, if we're talking about all these things happening, that is the year that it all happened like that with some pretty big names.
Right, but I mean, I don't think you have the impetus of the $81.5 million cap staying flat for 4 years. Like, that wasn't the case in 2001. I mean, it is the case now. And I think with a number of players and things, the thing is, there are going to be teams that are going to be proactive with a year left on players' contracts. The Sabres will move Ristolainen. They will move Reinhart. They probably will move Eichel. Can all of that be done in a 6-week off season? I don't think it should. I think that the Sabres, probably would be better off waiting on some of them and trying to get the best deal. I mean, Paul Hamilton, who's a colleague who is a reporter for WGR, the local Buffalo radio affiliate, said if the best deal is offered by Toronto or Boston, make that deal. Who cares where he goes to? Get the best deal for Eichel. Whereas I think the Sabres mentality is we're going to trade him as far away from us as we possibly can. How did that work with Ryan O'Reilly? How was that deal?
Here's an evergreen.
You're dealing him anyway. Like I said, there's no good situation. In many ways, Hamilton is right about that.
Here's an evergreen headline from ESPN from that 2001. Payroll trimming Coyotes trade Lume to the Stars for Book, Tyler Book. Like, that's a tale as old as time, man.
But
it really is.
No, it is.
Tale as old as the median age in Arizona.
Yeah.
But Anthony, this is the thing. The Sabres are an organization that is constantly afraid, and they're afraid of their own fans and from the media. And it's not just the Pegula era. This team made a trade with the Maple Leafs in 1993, the Andreychuk deal. It was for Grant Fuhr. Andreychuk, a first-round pick, and Darren Pupa for Grant Fuhr. I believe Muckler was the general manager in Buffalo, so he knew Fuhr from Edmonton. Okay, Pupa was the backup to Felix Potvin. The first-round pick was Kenny Janssen, and Dave Andreychuk, who had never scored 50 goals with Buffalo, scores 50 that year and 50 the following year, and they never heard the end of it. So they would, other than trading Dominic Moore for a second-round pick, they would never trade with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Why? Because this area is obsessed with Toronto and being in its small city, big city, and this mentality is what's going on with Eichel. The last thing they want to do is trade him to a division rival like Boston, where he wants to go, because him coming in that building and scoring a hat trick is the worst possible scenario for the Buffalo Sabres. They would rather trade him to Anaheim and get him coming in the building once a year and have to only face that embarrassment one time a year than Boston, which was only 2 times a year, but the possibility of playing him in the playoffs.
Mike, how did Mike feel in 2001 when the Leafs traded a third-round pick for Igor Korolev? How did Mike feel about that?
Igor Korolev is not – I mean, I don't want to speak ill of the dead, because Igor. No,
you can talk about his playing career.
Igor Korolev was their second line center, and I think he was badly suited to be a second line center. And he, by the way, he perished on the Lokomotiv.
Yeah.
So
the third round pick, did that bother you? The third round pick?
No, because I mean that team the year before went to the conference final. That was in between. They went to the conference final in 99. They went to the conference final in 2002. They were a team that legitimately was a contender. So adding a player like an Igor Korolev at that point, he was a veteran guy. I think he played with Winnipeg before that. Phoenix. Sorry.
And Winnipeg before that.
And Winnipeg,
right.
Right. So, he was a good veteran player. He just wasn't what they were really looking for. They needed a better second line center. And in the end, that was probably what kept them from winning in 2002. Sundin got.
I told you, the 01 draft day trades had something for everybody. I remember just reading the ticker after the draft, or like in the bar, and just reading the ticker of all the guys that got traded.
Well, this is okay. This was the other thing that was reported in the New York Post. Now, we talked about Eichel and the number of teams that he might go to. First of all, Anthony, the Flyers were included in this. I don't see a fit there. Do you?
With Eichel?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Okay. But
I think it's in there because, we've said this on previous shows. The Flyers are going to be included because of the players and prospects because of the younger players that they have available in the system. They're going to be thrown into any conversation. Flyers probably don't necessarily mind hearing necessarily that's out there. It's just I don't see a fit in that circumstance. When you already have the amount of money you have committed going forward, you still have to consider what you're doing with Sean Couturier for a long-term deal coming up really soon. You're already committed to Kevin Hayes. Those are probably your top. Those are that's your 1 and 2 centers, and we'll see how Hayes is after this year,
right?
After his off-season surgery. But again, the center situation for Philadelphia is such where I just trying to find out who it is that they would move off and who gets moved to different spots.
Right. I don't see the Sabres.
You make Kevin Hayes the most expensive third line center in the National Hockey League, basically.
Yeah, that would make no sense.
Yeah, but that would only be yes, right. I can't see a deal being possible unless a Drew or a Voracek is included in the deal, and I don't think that's what Buffalo wants, unless they're getting 2 or 3 young assets on top of that.
No, to me it would be To me, it would be probably in this circumstance the player that probably would make the most sense because he's coming up close on contract would be Sean Couturier. If we're really if the Flyers were actually in this conversation about getting Eichel, you basically would be making a top line center swap out, but you're taking a player who's far more developed in terms of his overall game.
I will also say this: I don't feel like the Flyers would do that trade until they knew the health of Eichel after an operation.
I agree with you.
That's just, they always seem like that team that's very picky about the medicals, and I
think Philly has to be judicious with regards to where they're going to be spending their money this offseason.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that Jack Eichel is on that shopping list.
Now, the name that came up in a report from the New York Post of a team that was not initially supposedly involved in Eichel talks was the Chicago Blackhawks. And Russ, as Russ. Okay. Well, Anthony.
I'll answer. Go ahead.
Okay. The team is the Chicago Blackhawks, and the name that would be the centerpiece of the return would be Kirby Dach.
Yeah, that would.
I mean, if I'm the Sabres, that piques my interest. Is Kirby Dach is 20 years old. I mean, do I think he's going to be a dominant number one center like Eichel? I don't know, but I think he's got the talent to do it. And I think
if I'm Chicago, and if you're looking to bridge, you still don't know what's going on with Jonathan Toews.
They may know. We don't know.
They may know.
They know, but if they make a move for Eichel, that is, to me, they're looking to begin a potential transition eventually in this circumstance. Now, they could look at it and say, hey, if Toews is back and he's going to be able to play, then they'll look at it as, hey, if we have Toews and we have Eichel, we have a chance of being able to match up with a lot of teams.
And they don't have to protect Marian Hossa. Remember that.
Arizona doesn't.
Right. Well, they're going to get him back, though. They're going to get him back. That's the point.
And he's going to play. Russ continues to say he's going to find a cure to that skin disease, and he's going to come back and play.
Is there a cure, Mike? He is going to play. Anyhow, but I would never make that trade because I think the difference of Doc and Eichel is like maybe 15 points a season. And why am I doing that?
We don't know if it's that there could be more included in the deal.
I know, but on the surface, why am I doing this to satisfy Kane and Keith and maybe the fans? Maybe they'll get a few more fans back in the building where, again, I could be getting a lesser Eichel. Kirby Dach is going to be a higher Dach.
You think?
Yes.
I don't think he's higher than Eichel, but he's going to be higher than what he is now, and I think he could be a 75.
If you're trying to get the Chicago fan base to buy on, you have to really sell them on.
Buy into this young player. Then that's what I would say if I was the GM. I'm like, listen, buy into the young player. Don't buy into the guy that's got to get a neck operation, and then we have to see if he's going to get back to being a 90-point guy.
Now,
transitioning to Game 5 of Vegas and Montreal, Anthony.
What a fascinating series this has been. It's like the last two games. One team dominates the other and loses.
Now you weren't on yesterday, so Russ and I were sort of talking during Game 4, and as soon as they got that break and McNabb, bleeded one through the pads of Carey Price, you could see the infusion of confidence in Vegas. That game, Montreal dominated for the first 45 to 50 minutes, and then once that goal happened, it was Vegas all through, going through to overtime to Nicolas Roy when he scored the goal. And now I'm just checking out the Twitter feed here of a number of reporters. Chandler Stevenson's on the ice, so he made
Justin Emerson from the Vegas the Vegas Journal. I forgot the name of the paper.
I'm not shocked at that.
And Peter DeBoer and the goalies are having a little fun because apparently Fleury and Leonard were talking on the ice, and Leonard told Fleury to leave the ice first. So now we don't know who's starting and who's not starting.
Look, Leonard said he doesn't care if he plays or whatever. He's a teammate. Like, I get him a little bit. Of course he wants to play. I don't know. I was watching the NHL Network, and they were like emphatic, it's Fleury's net. You got to give it back to him. And I'm like, I don't have to give the net back to him. Leonard did such a good job. Why am I giving the net back to him? So I would keep Leonard in there.
No, you got to make sure. We have to make sure to give Fleury's agent some more. A stone the next sword.
But you know what this is?
What's he gonna have next? A picture of Thor's hammer hitting somebody over the head. What's gonna be next?
It'd be Loki.
Hey, the one goalie's Swedish, so
it'd be Loki with the Thor's hammer. No,
somebody gonna have the Xfinity Stones on a glove.
We're keeping now. Listen, we're trying to keep this to like proper Norse mythology, not Marvelized.
we all know Thanos plays for the Maple Leafs. No, but
yep, it disappears into the into
at crunch time. Season was over.
Like crunch time.
We win the Stanley Cup. Nope.
You walked into that one, Michael.
We win the Stanley Cup. Nope. God. But no, I mean, this series has really sort of irked me because I think the games that Vegas has dominated, the Habs have found a way to win, and then Game 4, I think the game that Montreal deserved to win.
Yep.
Vegas found a way to pull it out. So now, I mean, now you got it's 2-2 going back to Vegas. I think all the pressure is back on Vegas because they're at home and now they're even, and I think they have to take the lead in this series going back to Montreal, because if it's 3-2 Montreal,
yeah, then they're in trouble. I would agree with that, but I think a weight is going to be lifted when Chandler Stevenson plays tonight, because that was the one thing. It took 2 games and Tomas Nosek to sort of put their face-off woes behind them. And now if Stevenson's back, that's going to be a big boost for them. I really feel like that's going to boost them.
Do we ever at any point of our hockey covering careers think that a series would hinge on whether or not Chandler Stevenson is going to play?
But I will also say, now this one you could predict that the increased offensive play of Alex Pietrangelo and Shea Theodore, those guys being activated and getting extra shots on net, that has caused problems for Montreal. And it's not really a mistake or a surprise that Pietrangelo is getting all these chances, because everything's locked down low. So he just kind of moves up and he has a good shot. So I think that's been working out really well.
Just one thing here. Renaud Lavoie posted an article in French, so I'm getting the English translation here. It says, according to one of the NHL GMs, teams were told by the referees before the playoffs, don't expect us to raise the arm when there are infractions. Our job is to manage the game. If that's the case, I mean, we're back in.
Then what's your purpose then?
Yeah, I mean, if that's
the game.
Yeah, if that's the case, then we're back in the '80s, Anthony. When I was telling Kevin,
then they need to really then. Then I asked the question. Then, what is your purpose then?
Right.
What are you out there? Then you're stealing a check.
Are you out there only to call a penalty when the puck goes over the glass, or I mean? I don't know. I mean,
I'm sorry. Are you the television producers of the said game, or are you the referee in this circumstance when an infraction occurs? Do you call it or not? That's such a piece of oh my god.
Yeah. What is this? The
NHL? Is nonsense. That is absolute nonsense.
Is this the NHL, or is this Running Man or Rollerball? Because that's what it's. I mean, that kind of.
I don't like it. I hope that wasn't said. I don't understand the mentality behind it. I don't.
Yeah, I know. Okay, some questions from the chat to end the show here.
Before we do that, though, real quick, didn't a guy basically lose his job because he was "quote unquote" managing the game? One of the referees.
Yeah, and he got caught. Yeah. He got caught on an open mic.
On an open mic,
and that's
one of those unwritten sort of things that we sort of know about, but we don't talk about it. Yep. But then it gets caught on. Then it gets caught on a mic.
Right.
Now you're saying it again.
Right, but this is a GM saying it, not.
I'm saying this is the problem. This is the very issue that we're talking about in this circumstance.
Davy Jones asks a couple questions. One on the Seattle coaching search, the other on Arizona. Elliot Friedman reported yesterday that Tocchet has had his 3rd interview. The other names that have come up were Tony Granato, Kevin Dineen, and I heard David Quinn's name be mentioned, Russ, but I don't know if that was.
Quinn's not going to have a chance with the other guys that are being mentioned.
It might be for an assistant coach.
Right. He could definitely get called in for that, and I think if I'm Quinn, I would take it.
Arizona.
Hockett's the leader in the clubhouse, but it doesn't mean there's not somebody that Francis doesn't want to talk to that's on a team.
Or the other ones who have already been interviewed, they may be offered the possibility of the assistant coaches.
Yeah, I know that
having coaches that would have having head coaching experience can come in handy here.
I know that Lane Lambert's name has been mentioned. I don't know if it was for Seattle or Arizona, but I believe he's still active with the team. I don't know if he's an assistant coach in Vegas. I'm not sure, but Arizona, the name that I heard was Mike Van Ryan, the assistant coach in St. Louis, who I believe was in Arizona previously, and Bill Armstrong was an assistant GM in St. Louis, so that makes sense. Todd Nelson, the former Edmonton coach, was also mentioned.
Hockett's still the best name so far.
Well, Hockett's not going to go back to Arizona. So.
Oh, you're talking about Arizona now? Sorry. Yeah, I can see Van Ryan for Arizona, actually.
And Buffalo, honestly, I'm here and I'm hearing nothing, and it's bizarre. It's like I'm starting to get the feeling that the fallback is to go to Don Granato, and that they're going to do that because I think that's the path of least resistance. The young kids played well under him, even if they have to keep Eichel. If they decide that the returns are not good enough to make the deal, Eichel liked.
When are they going to call Don Granato? Like July 21st? Hey Don, come on down to the center. You're in.
Well, I mean, I don't agree with the philosophy, Russ, but that just appears to be what they're doing. And I don't, right now it's
the Arizona one's is the real interesting one because you would think Armstrong would really want to put his stamp on what's left in the goalie market. And it looks like they're just waiting to see what's left in the goalie market. You know what I mean? Not goalie, I mean coaching market. You would think, it's just, I don't understand their philosophy. I don't.
Yeah. Jeffrey
Ohio Babcock. No, they won't.
Jeffrey, who said that?
Funky said that because he had that chance and he blew it, but he made a lot of money blowing it.
Yeah, he's still collecting money, and he's really bad at NBCSN. Jeffrey in the chat, if the Leafs were to trade Morgan Riley, what is a realistic return? I wrote about this today because there continues to be talk from insiders like for Elliott and Chris Johnston that the Leafs are going to make some sort of big consequential offseason move. And the only way they can do that is either trade one of the core group, which they say they're not going to, or maybe open up the cap space by preemptively trading Morgan Riley a year.
What's the contract situation?
One more year at $5 million, which I think is a good amount, a good number. He's a good defenseman. He's their number one. What they would get in return is, like I said in the article, one or two NHL young, cheaper players. I can't specify. I think they would get that in a.
That's the hope. I think what they would end up is somebody who is a younger player that could play in the NHL and a first-round pick. I don't know if they're going to get two, Mike.
Yeah,
1 year left.
I don't think they want a first-round pick. I
know that, but I don't think with 1 year left they're going to get two players for Riley.
Unless they can flip the first-round pick for somebody who fits the, that's a possibody too.
It just seems like that's a lot. It does seem like that's a lot to get for Riley with only 1 year left.
Does Dougie Hamilton become the next UFA albatross of a contract in 2 or 4 years?
I'm hesitant to say no.
Yeah, it depends on where he goes, Anthony.
It depends, exactly. Again, albatross can be determined, but it's also it's as much speaking of about cap management of the team he goes to.
Well, there was a very good tweet here. I'm going to read it from a guy named Nick Zarius. Carolina trading a first-round pick for Brady Shea very well might be the reason they can't afford to retain Dougie Hamilton. And that's true. That's actually a very good tweet because that is something where I think some of these moves that Don Waddell has made have future consequences that don't really get talked about because, like right now, nobody's talking about that, like that being the reason. Everybody's just talking about, they gave him a number and he doesn't want that number. And that will be the commentary. But what Nick is saying is actually right. That could actually be the reason. But I do think it depends where he goes. I agree with you. If he goes to the wrong team and they give him 7 years, then yes, we could be talking about that way. But I have a little more faith in him. And if he goes for somewhere 5 years at a reasonable rate, he could still have some really nice years. He's a very talented guy.
Now, Paul in the chat asks about the expansion draft with the Sharks and do they expose one of Couture or Hurdle or Kane or a few other. I could see them exposing Kane.
Kane they'll expose.
Yeah, I can't see them exposing Couture.
No,
Meyer and Hurdle are young. LeBanc, they just
cheap. They're not going to expose him.
They have to protect Carlson and Vlasic, so they probably protect Burns. There's the 3 defensemen. I think they're going to expose Martin Jones. I think they're going to protect a goaltender, whoever other goaltender, and expose Martin.
Yeah, I think they'll expose Jones, but I also think they're going to expose Kane.
Yeah, and
because he's got that whole other thing with the bankruptcy that, again, if they could get away from that, probably a good idea too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I see Ron Francis helping bail out the San Jose Sharks. They're unbailoutable. I just don't think that, and they're in such cap jail right now. They make the Leafs look like great cap managers. So I don't know. Let's see here. One more question. Do you think the NHL tells other NHL teams not to make major trades till after the Stanley Cup is handed out? Well, usually there's a moratorium.
There is a moratorium, but it's a shorter off season, so I don't know if they could really put that in play this year. I don't. I
think if there's a deal to be made because of that short window, I think that might happen anyway. As much as they don't want to take away the NHL, but it gets. I would also turn around and say the NHL isn't going to say no to anything that's going to, cause some ripples and get people to pay attention. A major trade can absolutely do that, and even if it happens during the finals.
I mean, I remember a few years back when that Jared McCann Goodbranson deal was made between Florida and Vancouver, and that wasn't like a major blockbuster, but it was a consequential deal, and it happened when I was covering I think it was the Calder Cup conference finals. So it was like I think it was May or early June. So it can happen with teams that are not involved in the playoffs, but I do think that they'll probably want to, and with the expansion draft, I don't know how much of a factor that will have on trade, because remember, unless these players are exempt, any player that's traded has to be protected.
Yeah, and I'll answer this question from Joe Morello. Why do I think Gallant doesn't stick with teams too long? He really didn't want to talk about that. He's that guy that keeps saying, I want to look forward. He doesn't want to talk about his previous teams. He mentioned Vegas once to satisfy a question, but at the end of the day, there is a little bit of torts in him where he runs the team a certain way. You've got to play a certain way. You're playing his way or it's the highway. And when guys don't play his way and you start either losing or getting complaints, too many of them from star players, or losing the room, then I think that's what ends up happening.
All right, guys, great show. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast with Kevin Allen joining us. For Anthony Mangione, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just